All right, everyone, welcome along. So I thought today we would look at DAX, okay? So Jesmond Dene parkrun report, there's a lot of simple DAX measures, basically counts, basically simple sums, a couple of averages, that kind of thing. The bog standard normal stuff that you've got to do. But there's a couple of exceptional things that we do. So things like the highest consecutive run count, bit of an interesting one. Similar to trying to work out which customers have had the most runs of sales, so which might be useful if, say, you were like in a supermarket or a small retail establishment, using like order of goods, you'd be saying pretty low order goods environment where you want people coming back every day, consistency, who's our consistent customers. So we've got that measure in place, haven't we? So we actually start to see who's been our most prevalent runner in terms of who's come consistently the most. We've got this bog standard one who's run the most, but who's actually gone back to back to back to back the most. It's interesting for Jesmond Dene, they're not the same people. Okay, that's always one thing to be aware of. The other thing as well that we've put in as part of this was what's the longest current streak? So for any particular event, who's actually the most frequent person that we've got at that event or who attended at that event? Okay. And then I thought we'd also just discuss one of the final things that I was really thinking about with a lot of this reporting. Okay, and it's to do with this, but also a lot of what we've got going on in the future. So we'll talk about that as well at the end. But let's cut on over and have a look and see where we are with our Jesmond Dene parkrun report. Now the boring bit. Geordie Intelligence is of course a YouTube channel. We're entirely dependent on likes, subscribes, comments, all that kind of thing. So do me a favor, like, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Don't forget to tick the bell icon so you get notified when we release new content. What I'd also really appreciate is if you could give us a comment. Just what do you like, what don't you like, anything like that. It's useful for me to know how we should be progressing this channel and where the next steps we should be taking are. Of course, we've got a professional arm, and if you want to hire us for consulting, Geordie Consulting is available. We've worked with clients of all sizes, from global multinational companies to small mom and pop style organizations. We've got no problem with trying to work out the best way to work with you, and we want to make you get the most out of your data. It's not about us doing the work for you or doing that. We want to help show you, signpost you, put you in that right direction so that you can get the most out of your business data and put your business in the best position to keep moving forward, especially in these challenging times. All right, so this is the last time you're going to see this page as it is, okay? There's lots of changes going on with it. One of the things that is going to stay though is kind of the flyouts. I think we're going to do a lot more of that, and it's really good that I do like as well the help one that we put in last week, but it is really good that Microsoft have tweaked the way the flyouts work, so you can now group them. As I say, when you couldn't group them and they were all kind of in one thing, like you had to go down and tick the ones that were there, and yeah, it became really difficult. Now you can build a group, you can hide or show that group based on an action, and then you put stuff in that group to make it all work. Makes life much easier, okay? The thing I want to talk about today was kind of this, right? So we've got, let me zoom in a bit. Okay, we've got now this where we can see who's got the latest streak, and you'll see if we go down different ones, pick different events, you see different people will come up. So it's changing, right? Now, one of the things I did with this was also going through, and this is something that you've got to do an awful lot within your DAX, and it's something that I've made tweaks to this an awful lot as well, but that we don't talk about that much. So if we have a look and we zoom in here, right, you'll see there's a folder here marked consecutive. Let me hide my face. Okay, there's a folder here marked consecutive. Now, this was an early stage of the consecutive piece, and it was like kind of doing multiple measures to get it to work. So you can see it stopped working now. I've definitely changed the way it works. We've got a more efficient way of doing it. So what we're using now is we're using this one here. Okay, consecutive measures, which is actually going through and doing an intersect to build a list of what this person has done, and then based on that going through and building comparing the earlier and doing counts against that. So my view was kind of, well, how do we do who's on the latest streak? And it was kind of, I was struggling trying to work out what's the best way to go about it. Okay? And that was where we got to one of these things here. So one of the things that I wanted you to kind of really understand is, in the world of Power BI and DAX, what you think you're going to do or should do isn't always what you end up doing. What do I mean by that? If we have a look at our streaks measure, right, our current streaks measure, okay, you'll see, so this kind of really shows one of the things that I think is really important that we understand, okay, about DAX. Because firstly, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we did a video talking about Vertipaq Analyser. And Vertipaq Analyser will try and put all this into one Excel cell, and Excel cells have a maximum size. You can't just put War and Peace into an Excel cell. So you've got to kind of be aware that as your DAX gets bigger, okay, that you're going to end up curtailing it, and then you need to be aware which of your measures are going to end up being affected like that. And you know, if we think, well, if we look at the all finishers measure, for example, you know, that's not going to get curtailed. It's not even going to expand down. You know, it's just kind of sum versus the current streaks. You can see there's going to be a risk there that potentially that's going to get cut back. We need to understand as well that this is why people like SQL BI especially really champion the idea that you should really format your DAX so it's easier to read. And this is kind of somewhere in the halfway house, I'd say, probably of what good formatting would look like. There's a couple of areas here that we should really do, and I should probably really reformat this going into DAX Formatter. Although, to be fair, we can do it easier now. We can kind of come through here. We can go down. If we click or right click on CurrentStreaks and say we want to define and evaluate, it'll come through, it'll show us this. We can then say, let's format the query. There is it now reformatted, and I can now choose to update the model with the changes. So we'll update it. So if we come back and we have a look back at our current streaks, you can see this is now reformatted. Okay, so it's in theory easier to read. The issue that you will find is that and we'll have a look at this actually probably towards the end, is when you pull this in, is it going to be easy to see, or is it all going to fit into our single Excel cell? This also highlights one of the questions or one of the issues that potentially you're going to face, which is, do we go through and add comments in line with our DAX, or should we be using something else? And again, this is a really tricky one, okay? Because by all means, yes, everyone will say, yeah, put it in here, put it in here. If we put it in here, it adds characters to it, which is then going to make the Excel side more difficult, okay? So it's a really difficult one. This is something which is really causing me a lot of frustrations, and I'm kind of fairly laid back about stuff. But it's one to be aware of. So I will go through, we can add some comments to it, because it's kind of worth doing at points with it. And in terms of if we were to talk through and say what's actually going on with it. So let's go through and explain kind of what's happening. Okay, to start, we've got to get the maximum events. Okay, so what's our top level going to be? Okay, and I've just called it out just so we've kind of got a number there. Okay, in terms of do we need this or not, we probably don't. It's just one of those that, for my mind, as you're going through and building DAX statements, potentially you put extra things in, and over time in the future, as you're doing your further tuning, you could potentially remove them. Put it in just so I've got it as a variable that's there rather than having to calculate it regularly throughout, because I think at times we might find we need max event. Okay, the way we've got it at the moment is I think it's used a couple of times, so it's useful, but it's one of those to be aware of. So the first thing we're doing is we're getting the maximum, we're then getting, okay, we're windowing, because we need a window, don't we, of actually how many events should we be looking at? And it makes sense to say, well, we've got a maximum consecutive count, so our window should be kind of the maximum consecutive count, shouldn't it? So we're getting get the highest consecutive count, and this is a pre-staged number that I have. So we've got the highest consecutive numbers and values stored already by using a calculated column. Now there's a whole thing around as to whether that's the right thing to do or not. In terms of the way you run report content and do things like that, I would say it's sensible to pre-stage some values because it will make your reports run quicker, especially that top level page that people are going to load. So in terms of this is kind of what we use to build up the who's got the highest consecutive run count across the main page. If we then choose to say, well, I want to understand who's got the highest consecutive run count for a different year or for a subsection, it will dynamically calculate those. But potentially those take time. But this is where I have the argument that this is a step you have chosen to take. So if it takes an extra second or two, you're willing to accept it versus, well, the report's really slow. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. So we've got that, because again, you could pick and choose. I just want to see like the senior males of whatever age category Ross is in at the moment. I'm not telling you. And that would give you that consecutive run count versus everybody. Okay, so that's what we've got. So we're using that to build up the window, just as a generic, give us the window. From there, we're building actually what that window is by putting in a minimum event. So we're not having to put this bit constantly in everything. So we've got, well, kind of, so say from event 110 to event 150 is going to be our window that we're going to look at. We're then going to generate this series, okay, this all events series. So we're generating a number, basically a number line from the minimum event to the maximum event. So from 110 to 150, give me a series of them. Right? So just numbers. Okay, it's useful for it. And that's then going to give us kind of an events column. Okay. This is now where we get into the interesting things. Okay, so we've got a top n. So give me the top one from a table. And this is, we're going to do a calculate table. So we're going to calculate the table for each person. Okay, so give me the values of participation parkrun ID. So everyone's parkrun ID. With the participation, the parkrun number. This is why I've used calculate table, because the other way would be you do like a summarize, which would do the values for you because you do a group by. So summarize, but then you'd have to do a filter, which is a row iterator, whereas doing a calculate table, you get the calculation, so it's kind of like more of a select filter as opposed to a go get everything and then filter out the ones, or do like a true false at each row. Okay. I'm sure we could have arguments about this. I'm sure the people who'll go in the comments down below and say, oh, why would you do it that way? It's wrong. Okay. It's what I've done. Okay. So we go through, we do it where it's participation equals the maximum number. Yeah. So what's the latest event we're looking at? And of course, where parkrun ID isn't blank. Okay. So they're not empty rows of data. Okay. So we still have some empty rows of data in there. The reasoning behind this is that kind of to get who came that day that we actually want to see what they did. So we get that distinct list. These people came that day. They took part in that event. Then we want to go calculate the streak. So we declared a column streak, and this add columns, add me a column of streak. Again, we're going to calculate a table. And this time we want the values of the parkrun numbers where they've attended based on everything above the minimum. Right, this is going to go everything above the minimum, and technically it'll come up to the maximum. Okay, there's no kind of things on that, although we are removing the filters from events, so it probably will go everything. But it doesn't matter from what we're doing. So we're going to get everything that they've attended, which is by definition up to the maximum, which is fine. What we then can do, we should probably put actually as maximum. Might check that. What we're then doing, and this is the interesting, this is where it kind of, there's a swerve ball to it, okay? Because if we looked at the consecutive, where we did consecutives, we used an intersect. Here, we're using an except. So we're doing an anti-join with the two lists. We've got a list of all the events that we've got from the minimum to the maximum, okay, that we're looking at, which is kind of why it doesn't really matter that one list goes longer. And then we're doing an anti-join, so get where there isn't one that they've attended. So we're going down and say, what's the latest one? What's the max X? So it's going row by row through effectively 2 columns of numbers. And ideally they shouldn't be very big because it's based on our window size. So for Jesmond Dene parkrun, that's 19 rows. And go down these 19 rows for each person and say, which one did they not attend? Which is the latest one they didn't attend? So they go, oh yeah, this one here. Okay, and then we're saying, well, we've got that number, take that away from the maximum, and that's going to be their streak. Yeah? So suddenly you're not calculating saying, well, is the earlier one, is the later, is this. You're just saying, well, what's the latest one that they didn't attend? Which is all we're saying. So if we're saying, well, we've got our window from 110 to 150, and the last one they didn't attend was 140, then their streak is 9. Isn't it? Or 10, or yeah, 9, 10, 150, yeah. So we're not calculating going down and counting, we're just going, well, what's this, then take that from that. I would love to be able to do the consecutives that way, and I'm trying to work out the way to do it, but anyway, it's you get to that point where it's just kind of, that's not how I would have thought about doing it. And the net result of this, then afterwards we're kind of building up, getting the name information out, and then building a string, like using a concatenate X, so that we actually have a brackets with this is the streak number and the names for it. And again, you've just got some tweaks to do because you've got table variables table variables within a measure. It can be a bit of a nightmare, but IntelliSense is getting better, and as long as you're sensible and do stuff with them, you should be okay. In terms of this, it worked, no big deal. So we've got get the number, max X from eval of streak, and then we've gone concatenate X for it, because again, you've got a table context we need to get. For all we've done a top N of 1, we need to do something else. This is great because if you've got 5 or 6 people all in the same one, the concatenate X will just combine all the names with a comma between them, and then the issue is going to be it's not going to fit in the cell, which is kind of, I mean, that's definitely in the line of first world problems. Okay, so you can see measures will get bigger and they'll get more complicated, but you can also see that being able to spread them out makes them easier to read. But the question of should we add comments to them is still a very valid one. And of course as well, where do we put the comments? That's a difficult one, isn't it? And lastly, what we should always do is go to the model view. Okay, pick our measure. So we'll go and we'll pick CurrentStreaks, and let's put a description in for it. So let me zoom in here. So the name and number of events for the persons who is on the longest streak in the latest selected event. Okay, and again, age of Copilot, Microsoft saying, oh, Copilot's everywhere, it's great, it's awesome. You have to be in Fabric to really use Copilot with Power BI, which is, I really struggle to fully get what's going on with it, because I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, Microsoft, get your house in order with this stuff, because you're kind of killing the progression of Copilot if you're saying this is what it's going to do, if your barrier to entry is so high. Okay, I mean, I can take part in trials, do all this kind of thing, but that would be wrong for me to take part in those trials and put those trials in place so you could see the functionality that then you'd be lumbered with a huge cost for. So I won't trial it, I won't show you it, I won't demo it. It's just not right. There are things you can do though. Okay, so what I can do is I can say, right, for here, for all we put that comment in, if I copy that and go over to a Copilot window, so over here, we can put this into Copilot. Now this is one of those things where we need to be really aware of what it is we're putting into Copilot. So Copilot is the one we'll talk about, but if you imagine you're going to put this into ChatGPT, something else, and the AN other engine, what are you putting in there? How much are you giving to that AI to learn about your business is a kind of a question to be aware of. Okay, so if we put this into the website, it's kind of, it's the more public side. If I put it into the work side, this is where we're using my Copilot subscription that we've got for the business, where Microsoft is saying it won't be used to train AI. So I would say if you're going to do it and you've got access to the work side, use the work side. Okay, for the sake of this, there's absolutely nothing in it that's confidential, and this is not a case of saying, right, here's our internal secrets to ChatGPT that can be exposed if you question it correctly. So please explain this DAX measure for me so I can put it into some documentation. Add comments if appropriate. Okay, and I've pasted in the measure, hit OK, bosh. Okay, so it's added some comments into the measure, it's given us our stuff, and then it's giving us an explanation of it. So we've kind of got something. This will all work for you, won't it? And we can kind of hit copy and put it into things and do our various bits and pieces to it. But it is one of those where you need to think about what are we putting out there versus what's going on. I mean, being able to have this and just copy that and paste that into Power BI, awesome. Okay, worst case scenario, we could do that and we could say, let's go to DAX Formatter. Let's just paste that in and then tell it to format it. It'll go away, it'll format it. Brilliant, I've got my lovely formatted DAX, so hopefully SQL BI won't just completely disown us or say, oh, you're off the Christmas card list. I've still got my comments in it, and I haven't had to do too much to get all that in. So that's definitely a useful use case for it. But to take the point of the last thing we said is, let's copy all this. Let's go over to our, paste that in. So we've got that. Let's go to DAX Studio. I want to do all this in front of you so you can see it. We're going to connect to this model here. What I want to do is under the advanced, we're going to export the metrics. 22.2, and this is '30th of December. So we're in Vertipaq Analyser. Let's open the file and let's see what comes out. Because what we're really interested in is seeing the measures, isn't it? The DAX expressions. Because I want to get to that point. Do we understand? Can we show just the impact that these measures have? And this is why in the past what we've ended up having to do as a consultancy is we've had to be aware we've got these measures are larger, and we've almost had to take them out and copy them somewhere else and put them into a separate Word file off to the side so that everything's clearly documented. But that takes, you have to be aware of that. Look, consecutive events, here we are, CurrentStreaks, min-max. Oh, we've got it goes all the way. I think it goes all the way. No, it doesn't, does it? So if we copy this, so I'm going to Notepad. Oh, okay, it does. So we've got this. This is actually going all the way, which is brilliant. Okay, but we can see it's what 1,800 characters, 1,823 characters are in that measure. So, we should see, when we understand the maximum character count that an Excel cell has. So what do you reckon then? Okay. In terms of the workflow that we've gone through with this is kind of a traditional Power BI workflow for us now. This is kind of one of the things that we do with our clients day in, day out, pretty much constantly. And that's constant review cycles. Okay. One of the things that really differentiates like a modern analytics platform from kind of the legacy analytics platforms is that ability to constantly update and iteratively improve. What is something we also need to understand is analytics by definition is historic, okay? We can only analyze what's happened. That's something which I think we kind of need to really let that sink in. We talk about descriptive analytics, which is really what that is. This is what happened. Descriptive. It's a description of what happened. So for us in our parkrun report, this many people came and ran. Okay. We've then got the two additional types of analytics, predictive and prescriptive. So predictive would be saying, well, based on this, we would expect this. So I could say, well, based on where we've gone, next week I'd expect to have X many runners. Okay. I could do that. Right? And this is one of the things that generative AI is starting to talk about, and machine learning especially. Well, you can use machine learning algorithms to work out, to make this more efficient. But fundamentally, and what you have to understand is it's still a bet, okay? The bottom line of it is it's still a bet. So I could turn around and say, well, based on where we are next week or the next event, I expect we're going to have 187 people, okay? For event 189. I could say that. And then we could have like something happen, like amazing weather or terrible weather, and the numbers are either way higher or way lower. You know, we've got Great North Run weekends where we've gone over, you know, we set course like attendance records every year. You know, dreading next year now, and I need to get onto parkrun to get some more barcodes. But it's like, you get to that point where you're saying, well, we could predict it, but I mean, you know, the numbers we had, for reference, we actually had the highest numbers at Jesmond Dene of the 3 Newcastle parkruns, which, you know, if you run Jesmond Dene, you're like, oh, wow, it's kind of crazy. And we got notification late on that another YouTube channel was coming. They were bringing all their runners with them. These kind of things that you wouldn't have been able to predict. We were expecting high numbers, but we weren't expecting. We were still about 100 higher than we were expecting. So I think there's kind of things like that to be aware of with predictive analytics. That it's a bet. You based on this, and what we're really trying to do with machine learning is kind of work out how can we fine tune that algorithm to be more accurate, but your algorithm can still be wrong, is the thing. Even the best algorithm will still be wrong with its prediction, and that's something that you have to embrace and accept as part of it. So for all the data science teams who are going to actually use your historic information to then predict and build predictive models, get all the glory, as it were, your data analysts are the ones who are going to have to explain what's gone on. So when your machine learning algorithm says this and your model is way off, you need to cope with that. It is what it is. It's not something to get too concerned about. And the final step is, of course, prescriptive analytics. Now, this is kind of this is a really difficult one. So prescriptive analytics would be where you actually start to talk about the machine learning algorithm is telling you what to do. So, you know, in terms of, you could say, well, it's difficult to do for like a parkrun in terms of what, but you might be saying, well, you know, we want to increase our numbers of parkrunners. What we could really do with is be getting, say, a local hotel involved to do some kind of a package deal for parkrunners coming out to do parkruns up in Newcastle. That, you know, well, you know, yeah, great, you can come. You get a breakfast, we arrange to get you to the start line of whichever parkrun you want to do, be it be it Town Moor, be it Lees's Park, be it Jesmond Dene, and then, you know, you come back, have a slap-up breakfast afterwards, something like that. You know, I don't know. That might be something they could do. You know, it might come back and say that makes sense for it. These are things to be aware of, and that's where prescriptive analytics would be. For you in your business, it might be saying, well, you should target your demographic. You've got this is a core demographic that you're lacking in or that you're succeeding in. because it can be really difficult. If this is a demographic we succeed in, and you say, well, we're going to increase our penetration in that demographic by, say, 2%, that could be a huge increase, as opposed to saying, well, this is a demographic we're not working with, we want to increase by 20%, and it'd still be less than that 2% in that successful one. It's one of those where, because those percentages would end up being relative, that you've got to be aware of it. And sometimes trying to expand your demographic penetrations versus expanding within a demographic have very different outcomes for what you do, and that whole bang for your buck side is different. It's like for us, we're YouTube. We're not going to go, oh, we're going to concentrate on people who, we refuse to use technology. Technology's not for us. As a YouTube channel talking about tech and that kind of thing, probably wouldn't be a good market for us to really try and strive at. We want to get the Luddite community involved. Throw away those pads and paper, use Power BI. It's probably not going to go down too well. Maybe not, I don't know. If you're a Luddite and don't use technology, let me know down below. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. We've had a nice discussion, I think, about Power BI and DAX, and I hope you really understand now what I'm talking about when I'm saying we have to think long and hard about exactly what is going on with our data at any given point. So stay safe, take care, ta-da.